Welcome to the newest edition of Trip Tease. I am Lia Vincent, and today Chris Vincent is joining me. This is the second time he's joined me on this podcast, so I have approved him for the second time. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, everyone.
We just returned from the Galápagos, and one thing that I've had a common misconception that I want to just point out from the get-go, the Galápagos are part of the country of Ecuador. Chris, did you know that before we went to the Galápagos?
I did not. I had always assumed it was its own country. I didn't know it was part of Ecuador.
So it is so common. I hear people say it all the time. But let me tell you why we even picked to go to the Galápagos. I have very travel-spoiled children, and they all want to say they've been to all 7 continents. I wasn't really willing to take all of them because I originally was going to go by myself. And Chris was able to join kind of last minute. But my oldest had been to 5. And so this was going to be number 6. So check. He has now been to 6 continents. But let's talk about if the Galápagos are for you. Because I felt like every single day on this trip, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And so I'm going to tell you all of this because I did zero research before going to the Galápagos. So I'm just going to be perfectly frank. Some of this might be obvious if you know a lot about the Galápagos. We went with a company called Go Galápagos. They're part of Klein Tours, and they do a great combination. They have small ships in the Galápagos. There's the Coral 1, Coral 2, and then on the Galápagos Legend. We were on the Legend. And we did a combination of Quito and Galápagos. So we did 3 nights on land and then 3 nights on the ship. The neat part of that is, did you know Ecuador is right on the equator? So that is something actually I didn't know. They took us to the Equator Museum. There was all kinds of really neat things you can do at the Equator Museum. One thing that really stood out to me is there was like a sink, and they filled up the water at the sink and poured it all in, and it just goes straight down, when it empties. And then he puts it in the northern hemisphere, and it goes one certain way. And then he did the exact same experiment where he put it in the southern hemisphere, and it goes the other way, which is crazy because, he's moving it like 5 feet in either direction. And that changed how the water went out. What did you think of the Equator Museum, Chris?
Yeah, it was amazing. I think it was really eye-opening for our son, Jack, as well. There were so many different little tidbits that they also revealed about the history of that area. I remember one of the things they said it's almost like 60% of the insects you find are endemic to that area. The reptile species and all these different things that I never would have known about unless we went to that museum.
So I think Ecuador is a really cool country. They have been having a lot of bad press because they are having some political issues along the coast. So it's not anywhere close to Quito. I felt perfectly safe in Quito, but they did have maybe more security at the hotels, probably just in case. But we went shopping. We went to the old town. We went to some great restaurants. So I definitely would feel perfectly safe going. I was going to go by myself with my 11-year-old. Chris ended up coming, and some friends ended up coming as well. So it was a great trip. One thing I wanted to talk about is how do you get to the Galápagos? It's not that easy. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually experience the Galápagos, but how do you get there? We bought a ticket on United, and we flew in, and then it is a completely separate ticket on Avankia is who we flew on. And then you can also fly a LATAM in between Quito, and then you can either go into Baltra or San Cristobal. But it really depends on how you're going to do the Galápagos. We were with Go Galápagos. At first I was like, I don't know. They invited me. Is this a good option? And I really, really liked it. I felt like I was getting a really authentic experience. The owner of Klein Tours was on our ship with his family that week. And so it's owned by an Ecuadorian family, which I think that's really, really cool. And the people that worked on the ship, so many times I've gone on a cruise and it's like, people from the Philippines or people from Bali or whatever, like they've hired people from all over the world. So you're not really necessarily getting that local experience on the cruise ship. But every single person I met, and I would ask them, where are you from originally? They were from Ecuador. Almost all of them were even from the Galápagos. So, I think that was really cool. Did you like the staff on the Galápagos Legend, Chris?
Yeah, I thought the local staff helped them stand out, especially our guide. He grew up in Galapagos and he seemed to have the most experience, I think, out of all the guides.
So I went to Africa about a month ago, and it reminded me a lot about of having the safari guides when you're in on when you're on safari and you have like a specific person that's assigned to you in your small group, and they're giving you so much history and so much information, and you're almost getting like a science class when you're on safari. It was a lot like that in the Galapagos. So we each were assigned a small group. We would take these little boats. So it would have like 10 to 15 people that would be in our little group. But you get assigned a naturalist. He would take pictures for us. They would get in the water. They would do underwater photography, and they knew everything about the Galapagos. So I would only do the Galapagos on a ship. If you were having to stay like in San Cristobal or something like that, and you were going to have to do day trips out to all these islands, you'd be spending so much of your time just getting there. They would bring us back after we would do our excursion. We would usually do a hike and then a snorkel. And then while we were eating lunch, they're taking us to a new spot, either on the other side of the island or to a new island. So you're really kind of like being able to maximize your time. One thing I did really want to talk about, because this was one of the biggest surprises, is how physically demanding the Galapagos is. So I am not like an athletic person at all, but I'm also like a very active person. I can walk 2, 3, 4 miles. Like I'm fine with something like that. So when you're getting off the boat, you're jumping basically into the Zodiac, and then you're taking either a wet landing, which means you're going to hop off the Zodiac into the ocean and then onto the beach, or a dry landing, which is still like them trying to hold the Zodiac as close to the shore as possible so you can climb onto some rock. I've always thought of the Galapagos as like an older person destination, and I don't know why I just put it in that category. Probably because it's one of the more expensive destinations that you can do as far as like an ocean destination. Don't wait, go now. It is a very physically demanding destination. I brought tennis shoes, and I was so glad because when we were walking around the lava rocks, you had to have closed-toed shoes. I totally was planning on wearing sandals. What did you think about walking on the lava rocks? I was surprised on how like there was not paths necessarily. You're just like walking across the rocks.
Yeah, so I went with our 11-year-old Jack, but I'd say maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say a lot of the difficulty across all of the hiking we did, I'd say maybe it was a 3 to a 5, somewhere in there. And then the volcano hiking specifically, I would say it was more on the 4 to 5 scale. There were cracks, within the lava itself and things you really had to watch out for. And of course, it's sharp. But one of the things I think you really need to pay attention to is being prepared for the strong sunlight, the exposure to the sunlight, and then also always staying hydrated. So when you get back on the ship, from any excursion, it was nice because they had snacks and drinks and things, ready for you. So it seems like it was kind of rugged, and it is an expedition cruise, but at the same time, I felt like you're very much taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, you were very much taken care of. I'm just thinking about like, because like one of our friends that was with us, she is having like some hip issues, and she had a really hard time walking on the uneven surfaces. Mm-hmm. So just thinking about stuff like that, I want to move on and talk about what all you do in the Galapagos, because I wasn't even completely aware. We were just talking about the hiking. So a lot of really neat hiking that you're going to do on lava rocks. The wildlife was amazing. I was really excited to see the blue-footed booby birds. I think those were so cool. I bought like so many little souvenirs that have the bird on them. Chris, what was your favorite animal that you saw in the Galapagos?
I would say the Galapagos penguin. I actually caught it on video where our son, there's maybe a flock or school or whatever you call them when they're actually swimming in the water together. But there were, I think, 20 Galapagos penguins, and they swam directly through the middle of our son, as he was snorkeling.
I didn't know you could snorkel with penguins, or that you would ever be in a place where it would be warm enough to snorkel with penguins. They did rent us wetsuits, which I think really helped with the ocean temperature. It really wasn't that cold. I mean, we were only on the ship for 3 days, and I got used to it. By the last day, I was not even wearing the wetsuit. My favorite was the sea lions. They're not seals, they're sea lions in the Galapagos. And I had no idea how much personality they had. I mean, I've seen them in Cabo. I've seen them at like SeaWorld. I hadn't ever experienced swimming with them. So they said, if the sea lion wants to swim with you, just swim with them. If they want to play, play. They're like, do barrel rolls. They'll imitate you. One of my friends said it's like the puppy of the sea or something like that. It's good because they really do have kind of like a dog-like personality where they were just happy you were there. They were interactive. At one point on our last day, Chris got to swim with like 4 or 5 sea lions, like way out in the ocean. He has some really cool video of them just all swimming around. So I was like, my goal was I was going to swim with sea lions. And I swam with them a little bit in this main beach. And there was a lot of people and they swam by me. And I thought this was really cool. Okay, I got to do it. And then I walked back to where the boats were going to be. And I was like, I'm just going to get in the water. Maybe I'll see something. They said the snorkeling is better over here, but everyone's at the prettier beach. But I was the only one in this whole cove where the boats dropped us off. So I'm just in the ocean. All of a sudden there is one sea lion and he is like all about me. He's swimming around me. He's doing these barrel rolls. He's making these like that noise at me. And so that was a little bit scary. I was like, does he want to bite me? And they said he's just playing with you. And so the young ones are the ones that like to play the most because they're, just like kids, they're more juvenile and they like to play. He probably played with me for like 20 minutes and I was just like in there with my snorkel mask and like swimming with him. And I was like having this, I can't believe this is happening to me moment. And one thing I looked up, so he was younger, but he wasn't like a baby or a cub. The sea lions typically have their cubs in August. So if you really want to swim with the ones that are like the little ones that are going to be the most playful, my tip is to go in November, but I still was able to swim with the sea lions. We really were able to experience so much with going to the Galapagos for a week. You also have other options. So we went with Go Galapagos. Celebrity built a ship called the Flora, and it's in Galapagos full time. It's a lot more expensive. And they have a lot longer itinerary. So I was looking, it looks like the least expensive dates start around $7,200 per person. But one thing to keep in mind, all the things are included. So the naturalist with the hikes and the snorkel trips and the food and your entertainment, you really are paying like that one price, kind of like when you're on safari and you get to have all the things included. The food wasn't my favorite. Chris, what did you think of the food?
I liked it. I thought there was a big focus on seafood. I think it was Seiko. It was the meat stew. That was a non-seafood option where they might use like chicken or goat or something like that. And then I noticed they featured a lot of fruit and vegetables in their dishes, like tropical fruits like papayas, guavas, a lot of plantains.
A lot of plantains. I do love plantains. They would bring it to you like in a bowl, like chips. Like if you were going to a Mexican restaurant and tortilla chips, they would bring you plantain chips.
I could see some influence with Chinese cuisine. There was kind of a fusion, it seemed like, of some Asian cuisine and then some different international influences. But yeah, definitely a lot of Spanish flair.
When we're on the ship, I would say I like the food better than I did on land because I think they were like catering more to the tourists more than when we were just finding random restaurants. So take that with a grain of salt. I am like so high maintenance when it comes to food. Let's talk about when you should go. So we were there in the summer. It is whale season, but I did not see any whales. So I would not like necessarily be like, oh, you should go so you can see whales. If you really want to see whales, go to Cabo, go to Puerto Vallarta, go to Hawaii. You can see whales. The blue-footed boobies, you're able to see them way more in the summer than you will in the winter. And I'm saying these like seasons based on what the Northern Hemisphere seasons are. This is the equator. Like they don't have like hardcore seasons, but the water is warmer if you go in our winter. So you probably wouldn't have to wear the wetsuit as much if you go like December till May, like that half the year, as opposed to when we were there. It wasn't that cold. Did you think it was too cold, Chris? I know you wore the wetsuit.
No, you got used to the temperature. I think they said the ocean was 62 degrees, Fahrenheit. So yeah, you could get used to it very quickly. I saw a lot of people in our group that did not wear a wetsuit. It was interesting because I didn't realize we were going there at maybe not the most desirable time of year. Bartolome Island was our first real snorkel spot. And hitting the water, we saw white tip reef shark, sea turtles right away. The very first experience, you're seeing what most people would expect to see when going to the Galapagos. So that to me really stood out. It was like, hey, this is a desirable location, I feel like, year round.
Yeah, I feel like it is definitely, you can go to the Galapagos at any time of the year and have a good experience. If there's specific things you really want to see, like you really want to see the smallest little cubs of the sea lions, maybe go in the fall. But it is definitely somewhere where feel free to go at any time. If you're looking at celebrity and you're like, hey, these are the cheaper dates, go then. I mean, it's amazing. It sells out. It's something that you need to book pretty far in advance. I will say that because of the political unrest in Ecuador in general, I feel like there is more availability than I normally see. So this might be a great time to take advantage of the Galapagos. Make sure your passport is up to date. You do have to have at least 6 months validity to go to the country of Ecuador. I would say one of my biggest annoyances on the trip is the flights coming home are not that desirable. So it is one of those ones where you have to be a little bit more flexible. Would I do it all again? Yes. I really, really love the Galapagos. I love the wildlife. I love the lots of things to do. If you're the kind of person where you're like, I need a relaxing vacation, don't go to the Galapagos. I mean, it was not relaxing whatsoever. I feel like I need a vacation from my vacation. It was definitely a trip and not a vacation, but it was amazing. And I'm like already thinking like, who could I take back? Who, like what clients want to go? Can we organize a group? So if you want to go to the Galapagos, I would love to talk to you about it. I think everyone should experience the Galapagos. And the flights, if everything goes normal, it's only like a 3.5, 4-hour flight from Miami or from Houston. It's really not that far. So let's wrap up this a little bit. And I want to give everyone some tips. If you're an agent and you're thinking about sending your clients to the Galapagos, the people that are going to be your best options for this are going to be people that really love nature, wildlife. They want an adventure type of vacation. People that would love it is photographers. We were actually in a group with a photographer from Houston, and he is a professional photographer, and I can't wait to see his pictures. I think it would be somebody that is a bird watcher's dream. But honestly, anybody that wants to check all the kind of the big bucket list destinations of this planet Earth. The people that maybe you wouldn't want to send, if it is definitely not going to be an ADA accessible destination. If you had a wheelchair, it would be basically impossible probably to get in and out of the Zodiac and everything like that. Maybe people that are super picky eaters. I will say they accommodated my son, who is a picky eater, on the ship, and they would make him things like spaghetti with marinara sauce. It was a little bit more of an adventure eater type of destination. So if you're ready to reach out to us to plan your own vacation, you can reach out to Vincent Vacations on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. If you're interested in joining us as a travel agent, we have a great new to industry training program, and we also onboard existing agents that are looking for a change. So check us out at vincentvacations.com. Chris, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening.